And it's like, or as Bill Kristol once said to me, said about me, Tucker Carlson is advocating for an ethno state. I'm like, no, what? No, I think that's what you're doing. But
this idea that we are on the precipice of another Holocaust, like this is not grounded in reality, and it's not healthy. It's so destructive.
They're really playing with fire, I think.
Then you know what, Ben Shapiro? You get Nick Fuentes. I gotta say, there's a part of me that just feels like, okay, now deal with this, man.
Dave Smith and Tucker Carlson just sat down together and blasted the Zionist campaign to cancel Tucker Carlson. And in this clip, they explain why it's not going to work, why every single Zionist lining up with their crosshairs on Tucker, like Randy Fine and Lindsey Graham and Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin, are going to fail. And spoiler, it's not because we're all anti-Semites. So let's watch. Please like the video and subscribe to the channel.
There's basically no one I enjoy talking to more at all times, but particularly this week when there has been this massive coordinated cancellation attempt. I've seen this happen to other good friends of mine. I was right around when Joe Rogan was going through this kind of massive coordinated effort, but it did not feel nearly as vicious, or at least as close to inciting violence as this one does. So of course, we're welcoming to the show the great Tucker Carlson. How are you, sir?
Well, I couldn't be better. Thanks for having me, Dave.
Oh yeah, of course. Anytime. Obviously, you have an open invite onto this show. So a lot's gone on over the last week or so, and obviously it started. You had Nick Fuentes on your show. I had just had Nick Fuentes on my show a few weeks before that, but as has become custom, you have become my human shield once again, where all the outrage is generated toward you, but all the deaths are still my fault, as the human shield logic works. But so there was this huge show that you did with Nick Fuentes. Then Josh Hammer, as I covered on my last episode, wrote this incredibly disgusting and creepy piece for the Daily Mail about it. And then there was a big event, I believe it was Genocide Fest 2025, where the theme of the entire thing was that Tucker Carlson is not MAGA. And in fact, there were calls to cancel Tucker Carlson. And so I kind of want to go through all of this.
Yeah, with Randy Fine up there holding up the Tucker Carlson isn't MAGA signs with like a select 10 to 15 individuals that were clearly paid. This was so astroturfed. And even the pro-Zionist crowd was like, I guess a few of them, like 2 or 3 that you could see clapped, and the rest were like, what the hell is going on here? This is so fake and phony, and it's just not going to work. When Randy Fine is literally up there saying that Tucker Carlson is literally, this is verbatim, the most dangerous anti-Semite in America, and he's leading a new Hitler youth movement. You can't make this up. Watch that segment. I swear I'm not making this up, but this is just Looney Tunes stuff, man. And they call us conspiracy theorists, right? And we're obsessed with Israel when that's all they defer to in terms of prioritizing issues. That's what we're dealing with.
As best we can and respond to it. Let's start with the podcast that you did with Nick Fuentes, and maybe a little bit about the one I did with him as well, because I thought there were similarities between the two. And one of the things that I just find very interesting about this is that all of the neocon Zionists are insisting that you didn't see what you saw on that show, that something else happened, that what happened on this podcast was Tucker agreed with all things Nazism or something like that, when in fact, for anybody who did watch the show, what you actually heard was Tucker Carlson tell Nick Fuentes and the world that it is against his religion to hate Jewish people, or any group of people for that matter. And so it's just, there is something so, I don't know, it's just this crazy world we live in.
Yeah, it's pretty dishonest to see how people reacted to this when it's so clear that there was a lot of pushback, and Dave detected, one of the biggest and most notable areas in which Tucker pushed back against Nick Fuentes in that interview. But another one I picked up on was when Tucker was saying, well, you're saying that a lot of this at its core is on the basis of Judaism, but there's so many good critics of Israel on the right, and it just doesn't explain this in that way. And he cited, for instance, Jeffrey Sachs. That's a hero of mine. I think there's basically no one better on foreign policy than maybe like Dave Smith and Ron Paul. then Jeffrey Sachs, and he's Jewish too. So is Glenn Greenwald. So is Max Blumenthal. So is Aaron Mattei, and other people we cover here, Norman Finkelstein. They're all great on this issue. And Tucker pointed this out and put this on the table for Nick to deal with.
But there's something so still to this day startling about watching someone go, my deeply held religious views are that I can't hate Jewish people. And then the response is, look, a Jew hater. So bizarre.
Well, right. And it scrambles the literal brain. And I am literal. I'm a writer, so I believe in words and their meaning. And I think they have nuance, but basically fixed meanings. And so to see someone lie or speak in a way that's dishonest, but totally unmoored from physical reality is always bewildering. And you're like, but no, that's not, I said the opposite.
Right.
And then you realize, of course, it's not about you or what you said. It's about something bigger. And there are a couple of things. I mean, the most obvious on a political level, this is a fight over what happens after Donald Trump.
Yeah, it is. And, you know, they care about narrative more than truth in this Zionist lobby. They'll lie through their teeth about you and what you actually believe, while backing Josh Hammer writing an argument that says, hey, I'm going to compare Tucker to a fox in a henhouse and say that the fox must be neutralized. But there was no bad motives there, man. There was no hate in that. That wasn't hate speech. But you are just merely for tackling the issues with this guy that we don't want you to tackle the issues with. You know, we want you to cancel him. Like the liberal establishment people that you ridiculed for taking that same position, you know, when it comes to debating conservative voices. It's just so insane. You can't even make it up.
What does the Republican Party look like? Does it actually adopt an America First foreign policy as promised 10 years ago? Or does it maintain its neoconservative posture, which is very unpopular with the public and has borne no fruit? I mean, it's been a disaster on every level for the United States for, you know, since 9/11, at least. But what happens after Trump goes? And that's what this is about. That's why they're vesting the energy in this. That's what the rage is about, because they don't want to lose control of foreign policy. I just can't say that enough. It's about foreign policy. They don't care about domestic policy because they don't care about the United States, but they do care about the U.S. Treasury and the Pentagon, the projection of force on behalf of Israel. And so that's what they're arguing about. And again, that's a very unpopular position with the public, which is why they don't say it out loud. My position has always been, I'm not ashamed of my views. I'm happy to talk about my views with anybody. I don't think I have any reason to be ashamed of my views. I think they're actually kind of moderate, honestly. They're different from the way things are operating now. And of course, I mean, I disagree with the direction the U.S. government's taking in a whole bunch of different ways, but I don't think we should burn the U.S. government down.
Well, it's enough to say prioritizing America first. That alone's a dog whistle, right? That alone, you know, says you're an anti-Semite because then you don't prioritize Israel above the United States. That's enough to get you, you know, the focal point of the ire of the Israel lobby, these Zionists. It just is. And Tucker's guilty of that, right? Such a radical concept, and yet that's the concept that most Americans adhere to. You know, their family, their community, and their country first, before this foreign regime that drags us into wars and we bankroll a genocide for. Not us being complicit with that, but our criminal government certainly is guilty of that.
My view, which I know is yours as well, is the U.S. government should act on behalf of American citizens. America first. Doesn't mean a bellicose posture. Doesn't mean you attack people. In fact, it probably means you attack fewer people and you shed less blood. You act on behalf of your citizens. They own the government. They pay for the government. It's in their name that all this is being conducted. So that's a really simple concept. It's the most powerful, resonant concept in American politics. It brought Trump the majority of the popular vote. And I believe it. I sincerely believe that. And most people do. They don't. But basically, in the end, I decided Nick Fuentes can't be canceled. They've been trying since he was a freshman in college. It doesn't work. In fact, he's gotten bigger. He is enormously talented. Anyone who denies that is lying.
Agreed. Very, very, very talented broadcasting talent. You can't take that away from him. You can massacre his ideas if you want. I've done my hand in that with 5 recent videos, and some of which I did take serious issue with some of his arguments. And, you know, guess what? I didn't just scream anti-Semitism at the top of my lungs. I entertained those arguments like I would entertain the arguments of anyone I cover on this show. And that's the failing point of these Zionists on the right. And I say the right loosely, because in some ways they seem indistinguishable from liberal wokesters to me, especially on this issue. But they won't do that. They're still stuck in the old game where they think you can just ruin someone's career and life by, shouting blood libel louder and louder successively. It just isn't working when it comes to Nick Fuentes. There's no denying it.
And he has like a not fully coherent, but a semi-coherent kind of position. And I would like to hear what it is, because that's kind of my job. And I'm also interested because he's the most influential voice for men under 30 in the United States. More influential than me, more influential than you. I don't think there's any question about that. Yeah. I spent a lot of time thinking about this and talking to a lot of people about it. And I think that is true. So it's not like I didn't make Nick Fuentes, hardly. I just want to know what this is about. And I wanted to make the point that I often make, and now seems even more important than it ever has, which is that virtue and sin are not transmitted genetically.
Right.
There is no such thing as blood guilt. Therefore, collective punishment is always immoral.
Amen. Same with collective virtue. We don't judge people that way. We judge people on the basis of their individuality, and they can't be culpable of sins of their father or people of that arbitrary group. If you're a metalhead, you're not responsible for the deeds of other metalheads, and I am, by the way. Many of you know that. I wear lots of metal shirts, but that's just an example. And the same thing is true about your virtues, as Tucker is saying, and your fortitude, your mental awareness. You don't take on the attributions of someone else. Our whole society is built in a way that's based around the individual, and only the individual can be either commended or condemned for wrongdoing. I think that about government, and I have to get away from, violating this in some ways. I think like the CIA should be abolished. That's not to say that I think literally every employee is literally down the line evil. I think that they all should have their jobs terminated. So we do speak collectively in that way. It's kind of unavoidable sometimes when there are monstrous institutions, but at the same time, it comes down to individuality.
God created each person individually. He did not create communities at once. He created people, and all of us will die and in the end face God alone. So it's about the person, and people can be changed by God, by the way. And the New Testament is that story of people who were, in the case of the whole hero of the New Testament, the human hero is a guy called Paul, was murdering Christians as a Pharisee, and then becomes the greatest proselytizer in the history of Christianity and my personal hero. So
Absolutely. I love this example. I use it all the time. When people say, this is a lost cause, don't trust this person, I've typically remarked this sometimes in my comments section, is look at Paul. A year before the road to Damascus, he was a Pharisee persecuting Christians. He was at the stoning of Stephen. He played a role in that. He was on the way to Damascus to persecute more Christians to their deaths. And he turned into, the greatest evangelical of the first century. That's just the truth. And there's a powerful lesson that we can all learn from. There's redemptive arcs in a lot of people, even some of the people that I typically despise. I want to remain open to that because I once was a neocon. I once was a Zionist, if you can believe that. But, it took seeing the truth. It took being exposed to the truth. Not everyone has been, and it's not always their fault. We're locked into an educational system that's controlled in many ways by the ruling powers and the ruling Zionist-focused groups. It's just true.
Don't tell me that people can't be changed because of their blood.
Yeah, like 100%. And, I had a post on X the other day about this where it was, I saw it was Dave Rubin and he was talking to Brett Weinstein. I forget exactly what Brett was saying, but he was saying something about your episode with Fuentes that was reasonable. That was just like a reasonable take. Like, let's not go hysterical about people having conversations with people or something like that.
That's radical, though. To the Zionists, that is truly radical. That's what, is just true now.
And then Dave Rubin said something like, hey, you could try to be nice to them all you want, but with a last name like Weinstein, they're still going to end up getting you or something. And I was like, guys, this idea that we are on the precipice of another Holocaust, like this is not grounded in reality, and it's not healthy. It's so destructive because, again, like you said, you just get people to be at their most panicked. That's what we want, people to be making decisions at their absolute most panic, especially when it's so far removed from reality.
Yeah, that's unbelievably delusional. I mean, people that are actual anti-Semites and express those views and tie their own names to it rather than some like anonymous avatar on Twitter, like they suffer the ramifications of that. They lose their jobs often, have no political support. There's no political money in those types of people and any kind of organizations like that. How powerful is the KKK these days? It just, otherwise it's like Fed groups. Maybe the Feds are infiltrating the KKK, probably so, but the Patriot Front and all those groups of obvious Feds, all with the same kind of body structure and haircuts. It's so laughable to think that we're on the cusp of a Holocaust. It's just, there's no evidence for it.
And
it so hostile. It makes them really, really hostile. And you feel that. I mean, there are a couple of quotes from that Josh Hammer guy who was like, Europeans have hatred or anti-Semitism in their DNA. What? First of all, nobody has hatred in their DNA. People, just to restate, people are not sinful or virtuous by nature of their DNA. Period. So, but he believes that. So, like, it does create hate. There's a lot of anti-European, anti-white hostility.
But that's never accused of being racist by these same people. They don't maintain consistency because, again, the narrative is more important to them than the truth. Favoring Israel and the Zionist lobby, in every case, is more preferable than actually telling the truth and being consistent and not dragging others for things that aren't their fault.
It grows out of that. Like, if you think people are going to come kill you, you hate them. And I do blame whoever raised Josh Hammer or Dave Rubin, who probably doesn't really, Dave doesn't have much of a soul. I don't know if he actually believes any of this, but there are a lot of actually good people I know. Michael Savage, I've always really liked Michael Savage. He keeps texting me like, "You're a Nazi." It's like, Michael, it's me, dude.
Confession, I bought one of Michael Savage's books back in 2003 in my neocon phase. How many acts of penance do I have to do to get around that, guys? Let me know in the comments. What do I have to do to redeem myself for having done that? Committed that atrocity. I think I have it somewhere here. I have Rumsfeld's book too, if you can believe that, somewhere. I know what you guys are thinking.
You're friends. And that is so, obviously makes me so sad because I really like Michael Savage. I always have. But beyond my feelings, which are not that relevant, that gets you to hate. That produces hate. Fear produces hate. If you're panicked, like if I felt my house was being broken into, I would hate the home invader enough to shoot him without feeling bad about it because I feel so threatened.
Right.
It's that principle, but they're making it kind of nationwide and they're really playing with fire, I think.
Amen. It's ramping up the potential for violence to be influenced by that. You wouldn't blame them if someone else killed someone and said, "Hey, Josh Hammer said to do this." That guy is still to blame. But this is exactly what the right criticized when it came to killing Charlie Kirk. Whose fault was it? It was the left, right? That's what they said. I'm not saying that I agree with this narrative, but so many people on the right said that. It's because of the things that Charlie Kirk said, right? Doesn't excuse violence. And, a lot of the right-wing narrative was when it came to the shooter of Donald Trump, Matthew Crooks, who we still, by the way, don't know that much about. The feds haven't been that forthcoming about that guy. Seems like he had no footprint on the internet. A lot of them were like, well, we're blaming the left because of all their violent rhetoric saying, Trump's a Nazi, Trump is indistinguishable from Hitler, blah, 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 all this rhetoric. And whether there's a point to that or not is not the point. It's just that it's inconsistently applied when it comes to this. That they can say these things about Tucker Carlson and say, like, the fox needs to be neutralized in the henhouse, but that doesn't potentially inspire violence toward Tucker Carlson. It's so warped and perverted.
The unpatriotic conservatives that David Rumm, the speechwriter, the guy who coined the term axis of evil, helped launch us on this whole path that we've been on since then, that's wrecked the 21st century. Who were the conservatives who were unpatriotic? It was all the best ones, the best right-wingers in America. It was Pat Buchanan and Ron Paul and Lou Rockwell and Justin Raimondo and Sam Francis and all.
Preach.
It was all the best guys. None of them were Nazis. None of them were bigots. They just all had one thing in common. They opposed the war party. That was the whole crime that any of them committed.
They were the most patriotic conservatives. And that is the practice of, and I do think there's a spiritual component to this, but of the slanderers now dominating our conversation, it's to invert the truth, not to pull it 3 shades or 15 degrees off. It's to flip it exactly around. No, you're an agent of a foreign country, a foreign power. And it's like, or as Bill Kristol once said to me, said about me, I just, Tucker Carlson is advocating for an ethno-state. I'm like, no, what? No, I think that's what you're doing. But of course,
that's exactly what they're doing. They can have an ethno-state, but you can't. It's the ultimate mark of hypocrisy. It's the same kind of hypocrisy about AIPAC not having to register under FARA as a foreign lobby. It's the same kind of hypocrisy that Israel's the only country in the Middle East that can have a secret nuclear weapons program, not subject to any inspections. But then Israel can go to wars with other countries in the Middle East on the basis that they have a suspicion that that country has a secret nuclear weapons program. The hypocrisy is just way too striking. It just stands out right in front of you like a sore thumb that you can't ignore.
I always fall for it. It's like, no, I don't have any investors. I have no debt. I have never taken a grant. I've never taken a dollar from any foreign government. I literally am not controlled by anybody, which is of course why they hate me. But you're literally advocating on behalf, you're lobbying for, you're in some cases in the employ of taking talking points from a foreign government, and you're accusing me of being an agent of some Russia or Qatar, or both great countries, by the way, I should say. But I've never taken money from them, obviously, and I wouldn't.
Oh,
and
yeah.
I always try to get those people to join me in a coalition to shut down the U.S. airbase in Qatar, the Unid airbase, I think it's called there, the biggest airbase that the U.S. government has there, to really stick it to the Qatari regime. We wouldn't be able to protect them then, but these Zionists don't want to do that. It's because we use it to protect Israel too. So yeah, this is just so ridiculous.
Really focused on America, but the point is, this is such a well-trod point, but I just have to say it again. They accuse you of what they're doing. Every single time. And what is that? That would never occur to me. I would never even think to do that. It's too brazen for me. I couldn't do that.
And then I got to say this other point too, because specifically on the idea of like canceling you and I wanted to, so first I want to make this point, and then I want to at the end talk about the kind of implied violence here. But I just wanted to, so Daryl Cooper posted this earlier today, and it was a on your theme of like, they accuse you of what they're guilty of. So here's just a few, just at random, of this kind of cast of characters. And of course, we could talk about Ben Shapiro wrote when he was about the age that Nick Fuentes was the age when he's been accused of all the horrible things he said, or said some horrible things. Ben Shapiro openly wrote a piece advocating for ethnic cleansing of Palestinians. He also once posted on social media that Jews like to build things and Arabs like to play in mud and blow things up. I think he did apologize for that. This is the reason I hate Ben Shapiro and have hated him for longer than anybody else that's around today. I bet out of all the popular commentators on the internet today, I bet I've hated him the longest. And it was over this. Ben Shapiro said back in 2011, Ron Paul is manifestly evil. As in previous debates, he is now gripping the pen as he would the neck of a Jew. This is what Ben Shapiro said about Dr. Ron Paul, the kindest, gentlest Christian human being that's ever been created, who was right about everything and has never in his life said the Jews. And look, Tucker, I got to tell you, there's a little part of me that almost goes like, hey, you said that about Ron Paul, then you know what, Ben Shapiro? You get Nick Fuentes. I gotta say, there's a part of me that just feels like, okay, now deal with this, man. And now say the exact same thing and watch it fall on deaf ears as it's completely empty.
Right on, man. Dave's breathing fire, but damn, is he right with that, right? This attempt to cancel Tucker Carlson, I don't think will go as well as planned. I think that's an understatement that we're seeing play out. It's people like Josh Hammer with a minuscule audience trying to peddle his stupid Zionist book, saying that Tucker needs to be canceled. Well, we can see the metrics now, man. We can see the statistics and who's actually winning over an audience and winning over viewers, and it's not you. It's the guy you call Tucker Carlson that's getting our views and viewership. That's who's attracting a mass crowd now in the new media landscape. It's not the old Zionist right, which is, again, indistinguishable on the Israel issue from the liberal establishment and the liberal wokesters when talking about this issue. Prioritizing this foreign regime over the United States is a bastardization of American sovereignty. It's a slap in the face to every American that actually wants, policies that are close to them for maybe our domestic concerns to be tackled for once, maybe being overtaxed or overregulated, having a hard time paying for food and fuel, which have exploded in cost thanks to the central bank printing fiat to finance all of our debt, now $38 trillion in debt. Thanks to this president, the former president, it's the uniparty, both parties outspend the other for sport and laugh at it and pretend they're going to have this new government agency, Doge, to make actual cuts. No. Yeah, $2 trillion in cuts was the projection. So much for that. Total farce. Elon Musk had a schism with Trump over it. And, it doesn't seem like the Republicans cared about that. They never do. They use this small, limited government as a mechanism to get in power, and then they do nothing with it. But anyways, Nick Fuentes has risen despite their attempts to get him canceled, to ruin his life, just call him anti-Semitic over and over and over. He has some bad views. I think he said some really stupid things. I think part of it's trolling, part of it is probably his genuine views, but in any rate, take those views on. If it's someone as big as Nick, why wouldn't it behoove you or be beneficial to people viewing your show if you invite him on and destroy his bad views? That's what I challenge you to do, Ben Shapiro and Mark Levin and Randy Fine. Take this guy one-on-one on in a debate. I don't think you will. And I don't think it's that big of a mystery as to why you won't. It's because you'll get your ass handed to you. And I think you know that. On some deep down level, I think most of you neocon Zionists know that he's actually a good debater. I would concede that. I think that he has a very high verbal acuity and, a wherewithal to take down these Israel First zealots. But that's the thing with this Israel lobby. They very rarely produce anyone to debate. Coleman Hughes is an exception. I'll give him that. I think Coleman Hughes's debates tactics weren't good, and I think Dave had the winning edge on him. I'm biased on that. I agree with Dave more. But at least he had the fortitude and kind of courage to take Dave on. Does Ben Shapiro on the issue for which he's most known? No, he doesn't. Not at all. And that's why he won't take on Nick Fuentes or Dave Smith on this issue. Dave has wanted to do it too. Ben has said, I'll do a debate on Rogan, but he's never taken Dave or anyone else up on it. Norman Finkelstein was on Candace Owens recently, looked in the camera and said, Ben, just have a discussion with me. Listen to me. But I don't think it's going to happen. They do have to deal with Nick Fuentes now, whether they like it or not. He has arrived. You're not going to go back to the old media landscape where we're locked in the Zionist paradigm forever. But that's what I have to say. What do you guys have to say? Am I right about this? Is Dave right? Is Tucker right? Are they going to be able to cancel Tucker Carlson on this? Or do they just have to tackle the ideas now in this new media landscape? Let me know in the comments down below. Please like the video, subscribe to the channel, subscribe to Dave Smith. Thanks for this awesome interview with Tucker. Great episode, guys. The whole interview was. If you like this video, please consider becoming a YouTube member. You can do that by clicking the join button below. And if you do that, I'll give you access to all my videos before they go live to the general public on YouTube. Those are the ones that are members only. You'll be able to watch those right away. And if you want a free copy of my book, Compact of the Republic, click the link in the description below. It's absolutely free. Plug in your email and I'll send it right to you via your email. And until I see you guys next time, no more war, no more debt, no more inflation, and no more empire. Peace out, guys. Catch you in the next one.